Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome back to Nate's Rooms podcast. I'm your humble host, N8. Today we have Paola Rodriguez, the licensed mental health counselor and certified sex therapist. I'm excited about this one, Paola, because I've been following you for a while now. I think I got no. I looked on Tony Visions is your cousin, right?
Yes. Tony Visions is my cousin.
Yeah, and I think he posted something of you or something like that. And then I went to your page, and from there, I was like blown away from all the information that you were able to give back and all your videos. And I was just like, this is super dope. So I appreciate you and your videos on Instagram for sure, and all your information.
Yes, Nate. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think that, we need more spaces where we can talk about sex education. So I'm just grateful to be here and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Right. Me too. I'm ready to get into it. So just to start it off, what what do you think about schools taking away sex education? Do you think they took it out because now we have Google and we have all these other things that we kind of don't need to have sex education? They can research it themselves, or do you think we should be back into the schools because kids are losing their way pretty much when it comes to sex education?
Yeah, Nate. Well, I think, first of all, sex education is a life skill, right? I think not only does sex education need to come back, but I think it needs to be tailored to age. It needs to be in every curriculum, right? Because I think a lot of the times people think, well, if we talk about it, kids are going to want to do it more. There's no correlation between sex education and early sexual activity. And we really need to start talking more about pleasure, consent, sexual orientation, and identity. These are subjects that we need to talk about. We can't deny that the main mode of sex education right now is what you mentioned, Google. And what happens when a child or a teenager that's going through puberty Googles sex? So many mixed messages, images that they're not mature or ready to see, and porn. And I know we're going to talk about porn at some point, but we can't leave them to their own devices. And I think it also starts with the parents. A lot of parents are uncomfortable talking about the subject themselves, so they got to work through their own discomfort and open it up and say, what have you heard? What do you think sex is?
Right. I agree. I agree because I even ran into a person the other day. I think they were just around our group. We were filming, and he was telling me how he basically, and he was, man, he was like 20 years old, I believe, or 21, and he was talking about not using condoms on girls that he just met, and like how he doesn't care, and it's like it is what it is. She looked clean, like she looked clean. So I'm like, wow, this really, and a lot of them, they don't have like you said, it's just Google. It's the technology just basically saying do what you want to do, and the music too. So
Right. And I think, one of the things that you said, right? Like we have to be really aware that people don't know how to have relationships. Kind of like what you said, well, she looks clean, right? So it must be okay. So I think, it is important because if we can talk about, not only protection, but also consent, right? Not not saying no, right? Not saying yes or staying quiet. That's not consent. You need to get a yes in order to be able to engage sexually with someone. For example, Sweden, they start sex education since the children are 11 years old, and they continue to change the curriculum as they grow. It is a country that has the least amount of teen pregnancies and STDs because sex education is not tied to a morality issue.
wow, I had no clue that, like, that is crazy. So
Isn't that amazing?
yeah, this is
Right? Because kids
awesome.
kids are curious, and when puberty hits, their hormones are all over the place. And if you don't have enough support in your home, if your parents are not talking to you about it, a friend is gonna tell you information that makes no sense. You're gonna Google something, and in Google you can find pro or against. I mean, that's just how it goes. So I think we need to provide our children with better sex education because we have issues around teen pregnancy. And there's other contributors to that. But I think, sex education would really help. I heard that in some schools, what they've done, they take two paper bags. One paper bag is so dirty and just like, folded, and one paper bag is glittery and colorful. And they say, which one do you want to be? What is that telling me? That sex is dirty, right? That if I decide to have sex, there's something wrong with me. And in my line of work, shame, really keeps people from being able to be sex positive and explore their own sexuality, and therefore ask for the sex that's really meaningful and they actually really want.
Right. I totally agree. I totally agree. And then going back to also what you were saying is probably a little bit off topic, but the parents, man, I remember when my parents did, I didn't get no type of game. I had to figure out the game on my own. I had to ask around, look around. I was like, searching online. Yeah, so
And it's confusing. Sex can be so confusing. It can be confused with love and lust. Yeah, it's for, I think for us, for me, it's like my parents give me the birds and the beanstalk, and I was so confused by the bird and the bee and the flower. I'm like, what does this all mean? I don't really get it. So I think, and sometimes I get calls of parents that are like, hey, can I bring my teenager in so that you can have the talk? And I say, no, you can come in and I can help you get more comfortable with you having the talk,
right,
right? I think parents sometimes are so afraid because they've maybe grown up in a an environment where they didn't really get to talk about sex openly. So it's like a parent has to get through their own discomfort. And a nice question, like I mentioned, would be, what have you heard? What do you think sex is? How do you think, you get pregnant, or what are STDs? And then you start to unpack, and then you're able to correct and give them the information that they actually need.
right, right. So asking questions is definitely like imperative to especially their growth, and all like just answering all those questions just brings a clarity to the child and themselves to figure out these stuff. So, and it's an easier way for the parent to get in there rather than just being like, don't do it, don't have sex with no.
Exactly. That's
Don't
when
you
they tell
dare,
you
I'll
not to
smack
do
your
it.
ass.
Hello, that's exactly. Don't touch that thing because you're gonna get burned. Don't go outside because it's coronavirus. It's like this abstinence thing, or this don't do it. It just doesn't work. It hasn't worked for years.
Right.
Yet there are laws that still exist in the state of Florida. Government is not really, it's really lacking when it comes to sex education. It really needs to be included in every curriculum. That's what I think. But that's, dreams.
Yeah, right, right, right. Oh man, yeah. So that leads me to my next question that I have for you, and which we touched on a little bit. Why do so many people say porn is bad for you? And I know it's all over the internet. It's free. You can pay for some. You could save some money and watch some. But why is it bad? You know.
So I can talk about this topic all day. So let's see how I can, so one, I think the first thing that we want to kind of identify, right? Like, what does bad mean? What does problematic mean? That's number one, right? So let's think about the four C's, right? Loss of control. So I've tried to stop or reduce my consumption of porn, but I have a really hard time. Compulsivity, there's a compulsive use. Cravings, because when you crave something, you almost like desire it so much that it's right here, right? And then continued use regardless of negative consequences. So that's what we would call problematic or bad, right? I think that porn, the problem is kind of like what you just mentioned. It is, overwhelming. There's so much of it. And we have to be really mindful that the porn that we watch is not realistic sex. Orgasms for everybody. No one says no. Hair and makeup is perfect. Oversized penis. Aggression, usually towards women. No consent, no lubrication. And most porn is made by men for men, to somehow protect their insecurities. So it's very driven towards that. There is a woman, she's a Swedish producer, that her name is Erica Lust, and she actually does more of erotic porn. The other problem with porn is that it bypasses romanticism, desire, arousal, key components of desire, especially for women. Men and women's desire work a little bit different, and that's okay, but it bypasses those components. And so instant gratification, get the job done. And one thing that I tell all of my clients, doesn't matter what gender, if you use porn as a part of your repertoire, that's okay, but masturbate without porn. People give me this look like, what do you mean masturbate without porn?
Just an accident. I'm kidding.
Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Use your imagination. Do you remember what that was like?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Creativity, sensations in your body, right? Because it's like before I go to sleep, put on porn, you know, orgasm quick, that's not really how it works. So I almost think of it like a knife, right? If we have a knife, we can use it to put butter on our bread, or we can use it to stab somebody, right?
Right.
So we can use porn with handle with care, right? If it's part of your repertoire, that makes sense. But Nate, I also wanted to share a study that I just learned about. It's through the Society of Research and Sex Therapy. And one of the things that they found, and I'm going to cliff note it, but if you guys want to know more about the study, please reach out. So this study took a whole bunch of men, and it was a self-reported measure. So they found that men that thought that porn was problematic, remember the 4 C's, and high frequency of use. What is high frequency? 7 or more times a week, right? They found that the men that self-reported this as problematic also reported low self-esteem, depressive symptoms, being susceptible to boredom, so we see that there may be some correlations. In my line of work, I see that people use porn and sometimes sex for things that you're not supposed to use it for: relief, release, instant gratification. So we just want to be really mindful of how we're using porn.
Okay, I hear that. Is there a healthy way of watching porn, like a healthy I don't know, moderation way of watching porn, or should we just completely cut it off and start using our imagination and creativity to get us out of
Yes.
that um
Yes.
craziness of porn?
Yeah, so Nate, so to be honest, and this is just like my professional, this is just my own thoughts. I don't believe in full blown restriction, right? Unless, again, there's a problem, right? Remember, if somebody's using porn, you got fired from your job, right? Because they caught you watching porn on the job. It's taking a financial burden. Your relationship, you don't have sex with your partner because you're constantly on this porn sites, right? Problematic behavior, it's a little bit different. We want to make sure that we tailor treatment, but I just don't believe, again, if you make it as part of your repertoire, and really understand what you like. And remember, because there's so much content thrown at us, we may see something and we're like, oh my god, I'm gay because I saw gay porn, and I was aroused and erect, and now this means no.
Yeah.
This is gonna happen because there's a lot being thrown at you. So relax, but find the things that you actually like,
Mm-hmm.
right? I love this idea of erotic porn, and to disclose a little bit. So I'm from Colombia, and when my parents came here, Colombia is somewhat conservative, Catholicism, etc. And when my parents came in here, my mom said, when we would watch porn back in the day, porn was about a story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf, there was a plot. It's a lot different to what we see now. And the way that my mom describes is just like, we learned a lot about sex through this channel. So they were using it actually as a way of exploration, curiosity, creativity, right? So I think I am a middle ground type of gal, right? So I would say use it as part of your repertoire. But if there is problematic behavior, you're probably using it to heal some wound that you haven't really looked into yet. And that's where we come in, where we can really help help you figure all of that stuff out.
Oh yeah, no, that's really good, because I think a lot of people use it for procrastination. They're procrastinating and they're like, what, let me just go rub one out real quick and maybe that'll get me back on the ball. Or you know, um,
To
these
sleep.
dopamine rushes, that we think that we need, but it's not. We don't really need it. It's just all a mental thing, like that you're saying, that we're probably lacking something, or something's going on with us that we need to figure out, and that's what you're here for, to help, unravel that, which is really cool because I feel like a lot of people don't know that, there's probably something going on underlying. That's why they watch so much porn. And I think it's important for them to figure that out because it can help them grow better and, step into be a better person for their spouse or
Yeah.
their girlfriend or whatever it is, or
And
boyfriend.
how do we have these conversations, right? And how do we have these conversations? Because I find when one partner is totally okay with watching porn, but the other one isn't because maybe they grew up in a more conservative household because the messages around porn have been negative. How do we have these conversations openly, right? I think we can all go from a place of judgment, but I think it's really important to understand, well, what does porn do for you, right? Because, after hearing my mom's story, I'm like, oh, that makes sense, right? But again, porn has changed. Now it's free, it's accessible, it's thrown at us. There's just a lot coming our way.
Right, right. And there's a lot of young guys that I speak to, and they're actually afraid to approach women because I think it's because of porn. A lot of them watch a lot of porn, and they're kind of more like they kind of just want to go on Tinder and just hit that swipe and just get straight to it, get some drinks, and then just get into it right away, which is fine. But I feel like when we're like in a setting where it would be appropriate to talk to a woman in public, a lot of them don't want to do and get approached. And there's been women that told me that a lot of men don't approach them, and I think it could be the porn pandemic, or
It's
epidemic.
true. And that I'm so glad that you brought that up, Nate, because I think as sex therapists, we're seeing a wave of young men that are either, am I obsessed with porn? Am I a sex addict? Am I addicted? What does this all mean? And I think for women, and it's interesting because I think back in the day, when you would meet someone, it's like all of the senses are being activated: smell, sight, visual, you're hearing, you're touching. And now it's about this swipe thing, and it's like we're losing so much from this thing. And it makes it so, and have some of my women and also my men, they're like, can you believe that this person said this to me? Hey, can I come over? You haven't even, got me interested on the trip. And I think that's where the desire between men and women differ. I think that we make an assumption that women want less sex, and I disagree. I think women want better sex. If the guy's like, hey, you want to go home? Why the hell? That's not tapping into my curiosity. I'm not interested at all. And women's desire, it takes at least 15 to 20 minutes to get her interested before she gets to the gate of, do I want to have sex? Do I want to continue with touch, or do I want to continue making out? So guys, take your time, invite, be creative. I think that that's really important. And the mindfulness, the power of touch, I can't talk about that enough.
Wow, wow, amazing. That was powerful. Yeah, definitely. I don't want humanity to lose that touch of that human interaction that that we have, and it's becoming less and less, especially what's going on right now. It's becoming less and less of a thing. But hopefully we're able to somehow, get back to that human connection, and people like you, professionals like you out there are just doing a great job and making sure that, that happens again for people, because I know there's a lot of people who are kind of bored with their relationships and stuff like that. And it's probably just, who knows, but
Yeah, the relationships are hard. Long-term
yeah,
relationships are hard, but I think I wonder, right? Kind of like what we were talking about earlier, when they tell you no, do you want it more? Now that we can touch each other, I wonder if touch is gonna increase after all of this is over, or and I also wonder, I think the dating world, right? The guy that drives the BMW and has the Black American Express, now that we can't do that, can we date more, with simplicity? Can we be more authentic?
right,
Right? Because I am encouraging people still date, but go on a walk, of course, social distancing, keeping all that stuff in mind. But now, can we show more of our authentic self? I think a lot of us are there trying to perform, right? By wearing the expensive shoes, by wearing a lot of makeup, by driving the really nice car. Now that those things are not readily accessible, I wonder if we could go back to that simplistic idea of getting to know each other and getting to know each other actually well in a more real type of level.
Wow, that's so true. That's such that that's such a good question. Like I would really want to see definitely maybe a lot of people that I know, maybe their mindsets will change or stuff like that. So that's a really good question.
I hope so. I don't know. Humans, we tend to continue to make the same mistake over and over. History has repeated itself, I don't know how many thousand times. I'm like, people,
Right.
hello, this is like the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing, expecting for something for a different result. So I am hopeful, cautiously, but let's see where this takes us.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, this leads me into the last question about sex addiction. Like, how do you even know if you're a sex addict, or like what what are the signs, the red flags? I don't know. Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Can you moderate it? What is it about sex addiction that could help us, or what information that we can get that could help us?
Okay, great question, right? So, as sex therapists, when we talk about sex addiction, there's a little bit of controversy in the field, right? Because so we have it's called the DSM, which is our Diagnostic Manual of Disorders, and this is where you find everything. It didn't make it on DSM because addiction professionals are saying, well, is it really an addiction? So we see it more as sexual compulsivity, right? And we define it as a problem where it's disrupting functioning, right? When it's causing high levels of stress. So remember, we talked about the four C's. We can almost go back to that: compulsive use, loss of control, continued use regardless of consequences, and cravings. I can't get it out of my mind.
Right.
There's almost like an obsessive quality to it. So, kind of like same thing. And I think we also want to be aware, because I've had men that come in and they're like, oh my God, I think I'm a sex addict. And I'm like, okay, let's start to unpack. Why do you think that? Because I think first, know if you meet criteria. Know if you meet criteria. Unfortunately, the media and the TV, really does a good job of giving us a lot of, little information without a lot of research. So sex addiction became like the thing, with all this stuff started coming out.
Right.
And so if it disrupt functioning, if it's this compulsivity to it, and the men that come in and they're like, well, I think I'm a sex addict, okay, tell me more. Well, I masturbate 3 times a week, and no, that's not sex addiction, but this person grew up in a very religious, guilt-driven type of household. Messages about sex were negative. So, makes sense. And then I have my guys, that come in and they're spending a lot of money either, looking for sex workers, strip clubs, sites. It takes away from them being successful. So, for example, they want to get this promotion, but you mentioned procrastination, right? Instead of like working on this, they can't think. So they go to the, massage parlor, right? And so, you're masturbating so much that maybe you're hurting your shaft. Okay, now we have to look at that. And most of the time I find, Nate, that these men have gone through some trauma, and it doesn't mean sexual trauma. It could be any trauma. And when they're young, they start fantasizing about their teacher, about women, or maybe they find porn or a magazine and they find comfort. And so it becomes this thing, it becomes a coping skill that doesn't work well over time. So there's such psychology in sexuality, and this is why I'm so interested in this. It's amazing. So that's what I see. But I think, one, know if you meet criteria, go back to the four C's, and if you meet criteria, then we can take it from there.
Right. Right. Man, I had no clue like these things can go so deep. Like I just
Yes,
thought,
they
okay,
always
yeah,
do. They
wow,
always do. I think that's my favorite thing about my job, that everything has an explanation. Everything. And childhood and upbringing, there's all this stuff that I always find there, and I can always connect it to the behavior that the person is presenting in this moment.
right, right. And that's why I think somebody said, I forgot who said it, but they said if you can, as a man, if you can control your sex drive, it's a good thing. That way you can progress more. Um, because if you get carried away, you can get lost in the sauce, if you know what I mean. Like you start going to strip clubs, spending all types of money, going to massage parlors like you're saying, and your discipline kind of goes with things just start, peeling back where you just end up into a spot where you just don't know how you got there, and it all started with just crazy sex and just.
Exactly. And I think, Nate, to your point, because I think, when we think a little bit about strip clubs, when I hear from some of my guys, listen, when we date, I've been talking about this recently. When we go out into the dating world, we almost have to sign a little bit of a release, kind of like when you go skydiving, right? And they're like, sir, you got to sign right here in case you die, or you can't jump out of the plane or something happens. When you get yourself out there to start dating, you got to understand that you're going to deal with rejection. We're going to get rejected, people. We got to learn how to deal with it. Maybe a little bit of pain, maybe some disappointments,
Mhm.
right? It is work. And you have to have a strong sense of identity, and own it to the person, to really be honest and authentic. Strip clubs and massage parlors are easy. You feel wanted, you feel desired, money talks. So if you have money, we're good, right? And I think that, again, power to my sex workers out there, but it is important to understand what is this doing for me, because that is more attainable. Again, instant gratification. We live in a society where if we don't have our phones or it's not working quickly enough, we're like, there's this anxiety, where's the next thing? So I think, it's learning to slow down and using this idea of mindfulness,
Mhm.
right? Getting back to the present moment, understanding that rejection is part of the journey. Nobody that is extremely successful can tell you that they haven't gone through hardships. It's
Right.
part of the whole reality. It's part of the path that is going to take you somewhere. So we have to learn to be able to manage with those emotions.
Wow. Man. Man, thank you so much, Paola, for all this information that you're giving us, dropping these gems for everybody, all my listeners.
Oh, thank you, Nate.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it, man. You really gave us well, you gave me for sure a huge insight on porn and sex addiction, of course, and definitely, hopefully, one day we can convince Congress to put sex education back into school.
Yes.
We'll now
There's
happen.
a lot of changes that need to happen there, but don't even get me started on that. But, hopefully, yes, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of good people doing amazing work. So unity, we gotta unite and we gotta speak up. We need a voice. We need to be heard. So hoping, that things get better as we go.
Yeah, I agree. I think sex is one of these topics that just gets pushed under the rug. It's kind of like we just do it and we just do our thing, and it's not something. I think it's something that's spiritual, and we need to really look into it and tap into it. And I totally agree with everything you're saying. And how can people reach out to you? If they wanted to get more information or have like maybe
Sure,
a conversation or
sure.
something like that.
So, as in my Instagram, I'm constantly, just kind of talking about these topics. I think it's really important. But if you wanted more tailored services, you could reach out via email. Everything is on my website. My website is Life Discovery Psych, PSYCH. And there's all my information, and you can reach out through me there. I also offer workshops. I've been starting to work with guilty pleasures. So we're doing some workshops there, just to make sure that I can educate people. Not everybody needs therapy, not everybody needs to come in. So, doing it in a group setting, I like doing things that are creative, getting people thinking. I think that's how we learn. We learn by being challenged. And mind and body and spirituality are all connected and they're transcendent.
Oh yeah, I agree, 100%. I don't know. It just popped in my head when you said guilty pleasures. Just last question here. Um,
Sure.
I can talk about this stuff all day long. So I appreciate you, but this last question. The toys, when women bring the toys around, like, yo, here's a thing, or or here's the little thing I'm gonna put this little toy, and I'm put it like that. Honestly, for a guy, I feel like it's kind of intimidating in a way, because you're like, okay, what is all this stuff? Because you just the plain old, back way missionary, like, and then now these other little things are coming to play. How can men kind of handle that situation?
Yes. Oh my God. Great question. Okay. So, one, I think, guys, listen, This is not about you. This is about woman's sexuality, because what we know, right, is that, remember, only 25% of women can have an orgasm through penetration. All the rest need
That's it.
clitoral stimulation. That's it,
Wow.
right? And the reason for that being, actually, let me grab Lola, which is the vulva that I use for education. So one of the things that we know is that I happen to have her right here. So this is Lola, and I have full consent to use her, right?
You know,
So hi Lola, hi Nate. So yeah, so clitoris, right, which we know it's located, even though it's about 3 to 3.25 average in size, it has two long legs that we cannot see. So the women that can have an orgasm through penetration at the movement of pelvic muscle, just because women are, made a little bit different, there's no problem. But most women need clitoral stimulation, guys. So when a toy comes in, I think for my women out there, kind of address it, let the other person understand, hey, this toy and how it works. And it brings me to orgasm really quickly, because, a vibrator, no penis is going to be able to vibrate that, that intensely and that quickly. So I think, guys, remind yourself, this is not about my insecurities. This is about her knowing her sexual voice and feeling empowered and comfortable to share that with me. That is a beautiful thing,
True.
right? We need, tell me how you talk and I'll tell you how you sex. If we can't tell each other what we like, then what the hell are we doing? Right? So really paying attention to the clitoris, its only function is for pleasure, and checking in with those assumptions and being open to exploration. People that are not open to exploration is because they've grown up with a lot of judgments. So checking into those judgments and reminding yourself that this is about her sexuality, not your insecurity.
Right. Wow. Wow. Thank you for breaking that down. I just had to ask that last question, but we definitely have to get you on again and stop by Nate's room again, Paola, because man,
Awesome, Nate. Anytime. Anytime.
I really appreciate it. Okay. You have a great day, great night, and be well in this whole pandemic thing. Please be safe.
Thank you. Wishing everybody health and safety, and get yourself out there and enjoy nature. The mind is really important to take care of. So just everybody make sure that you do that. And Nate, thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a good
Okay.
day.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.